The training dome of Helios Station shimmered like a pearl in orbit above a dying red star. Inside, the air trembled with the sound of precision, the kind that only machines or gods could make. Commander Thylan of the Velarii Ascendancy moved through the simulated battlefield like liquid light. His armor, a living alloy that rippled with silver veins, reacted before thought. Every strike of his plasma glaive was exact, every motion a whisper of calculated death. The Velarii had spent 10,000 years perfecting the science of combat. To them, battle was not chaos, it was math. Across the dome, Captain Juno Hale of Earth's Defense Corps was chaos given form. Her exosuit, the Mark 7 mule rig, wasn't graceful. It wasn't beautiful. It looked like an old cargo loader that someone had welded into a tank. Servos groaned. Vents hissed. When she moved, the floor shook. Thylan's soldiers watched her in horrified silence. Every step she took sounded like an insult to physics. Juno slammed her magnetic boots down, launched a steel dummy across the room, caught it midair, and used it to knock down another. Sparks rained across the dome. She grinned under her cracked helmet. "Sorry for the mess," she said through her comms. "We humans like our fights loud." Thylan stopped his perfect motion. His silver armor dimmed, offended by the comparison. "Noise," he said calmly, "is evidence of inefficiency. Your kind mistakes brute force for mastery." "Maybe," Juno replied, slapping her rifle's magazine into place with a satisfying clack. "But noise means something's working." He tilted his head, alien eyes narrowing. "Your mission will fail if your methods remain unrefined. My superiors insist on joint cooperation, but chaos is not a tactic, Captain Hale. It is a disease." From the catwalk, Juno's engineer Mac Rivera laughed through his open channel. His armor was mismatched and patched with spare parts. A small painted skull grinned across his shoulder plate. "Chaos works fine," he said, "especially when the clean guys freeze up." Thylan ignored him, turning instead toward the far wall. At his gesture, a section of plating slid open to reveal a single hovering pod. Inside it, a set of Velarii synaptic armor, flawless and shimmering like mercury. "This," he said proudly, "is what victory looks like. We offer you 1 unit for your mission into the Perseus Rift. A gift to help you survive your own unpredictability." The pod rotated slowly, bathing the dome in cool blue light. The armor looked like art, like something that could think for itself. But Juno didn't move. She stood silent for a moment, eyes tracing the silver armor's reflection in her cracked visor. Then she shook her head. "Thanks," she said, "but no thanks. We'll stick with ours." The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. Velarii officers exchanged stiff glances, their posture faltering for the first time. Refusing a gift from the Ascendancy was like refusing physics itself. Thylan's voice dropped to a chill whisper. "You would reject perfection?" Juno smiled, tired, human, and utterly unafraid. "Perfection's overrated. I trust something that can survive being broken." The human crew chuckled softly, and Mac muttered, "Now that's going on the recruitment poster." For the first time, the alien commander had no algorithm to answer with. His flawless armor gleamed beside the humans' dented rigs, and for a strange, quiet moment, it seemed less alive than the battered humans standing before it. Outside the dome, the red star flared, a distant warning. No one yet knew that soon, both perfection and chaos would be tested by something neither could predict. But Juno felt it. That old instinct humans had never lost. The one that told her when something big was coming. She looked back at the shining alien armor, perfect, silent, useless, and whispered, "Let's see which one of us still stands when things start to break." The workshop smelled like burnt metal and strong coffee. Captain Juno Hale sat on an overturned crate, peeling off her cracked gauntlets while sparks danced from the plasma torch across the room. Mac Rivera crouched beside a half-disassembled thruster pack, humming off-key as he welded a crooked plate back in place. "This thing looks like it's held together by hope and duct tape," he said, squinting through his visor. "Good," Juno replied. "Hope's lighter than armor plating." A low chuckle echoed through the cluttered space. The rest of her team, Lieutenant Iris, Big-Shouldered Tate, and Medic Lynn, were scattered among heaps of wires, power cells, and tools that definitely didn't pass Velarii inspection codes. Their corner of Helios Station looked more like a junkyard than a military bay. To the humans, it was home. To the Velarii, it was horror. Across the transparent wall, Commander Thylan observed them in silence. His soldiers stood still behind him, like statues wrapped in living light. Their training hall gleamed, every weapon polished, every motion precise. The contrast between the two groups was a painting of order and chaos divided by glass. Mac glanced up at the observation deck. "You think they ever laugh, Cap?" Juno smirked. "Not without a program update." He barked a laugh, but it died as the station's overhead lights flickered. The floor hummed, deep and uneven. Iris looked up from her console. "That's not a drill hum." A voice filled the bay, cold, synthetic, and utterly calm. "Alert. Multiple warp signatures detected in close orbit. Unidentified fleet approaching. Hostile pattern confirmed." Every human froze for half a heartbeat, then moved at once. Juno was already sealing her gauntlets back on. "You heard it, team. Load up." Mac kicked a crate aside, revealing a stack of heavy magnetic rounds. "Well, damn," he muttered. "Couldn't even finish my coffee." Through the wide viewport, streaks of red light appeared, ships dropping out of warp directly above the station. They didn't arrive from the edge of the system. They appeared inside defensive range, impossible by any known FTL standard. "Who the hell are they?" Iris whispered. Tate checked the feed on his visor. Oblivion Collective, Merc Syndicate, raiders, pirates, tech thieves, and now apparently magicians. The first volley hit a moment later. Helios Station shuddered like a wounded beast. Tools and panels crashed to the floor. A line of sparks ran up the wall as a generator blew out in the corner. Mac caught his balance against a workbench, yelling over the alarms. "We just got punched by something twice our size." "Then punch back harder," Juno shouted. Her voice cut through the chaos like steel. They moved fast. Years of training turned panic into rhythm. Iris rerouted power from the habitat ring to the defense grid. Tate's heavy rifle locked and hissed. Mac slammed new cores into the suits one by one. And through it all, the Velarii remained eerily calm. Commander Thylan's voice came through the comm channel, smooth and distant. "Human contingent, retreat to central alignment. Concordance squads will handle the engagement." Juno laughed bitterly. "Yeah? Tell your squads the enemy didn't read their manual." Static. Then silence. A second impact hit, closer this time. The deck beneath their feet cracked, exposing a thin trail of leaking coolant that froze instantly in the cold air. The workshop lights dimmed to red emergency mode. Mac looked up at Juno. "If the Concordance is handling this, they're doing a terrible job." Outside the viewport, a Velarii patrol squad danced through space in perfect formation, plasma blades flashing in the void. Then something unseen hit them. A blast of kinetic shrapnel that scattered the formation like glass beads in a storm. Their perfect symmetry shattered. Juno watched, jaw tight. "That's what perfection gets you." The comm hissed again. This time, it wasn't Thylan's calm voice. It was a scream. "Deck 7 compromised. Multiple breaches. Repeat, multiple." The channel cut to static. Mac yanked a lever down, sealing the bay doors. "That's our floor." Juno slammed a fresh power cell into her rifle. "Good. Then it's our fight." She looked at her team. Patched suits, tired faces, human hearts beating too fast, and grinned. "Let's show them what chaos can do." The floor vibrated as enemy boarding pods slammed into the outer hull. Dust drifted from the ceiling, floating like snow. Somewhere deep in the station, alarms wailed. Not the calm synthetic tones of the Velarii, but raw, human klaxons screaming war. The noise was back. And this time, it wasn't inefficiency. It was survival announcing itself. The corridor outside the human workshop shook as the first breach alarms howled through Helios Station. Red emergency strobes flashed, painting the walls in rhythm with the pounding of Juno's boots. Her visor displayed a storm of signals, friendlies, hostiles, hull fractures, all blurring into a single word pulsing across the screen. Chaos. Her comm crackled to life. Commander Thylan's voice, calm and sharp, cut through the static. "Captain Hale, your team will hold position until Concordance forces restore order. Do not interfere." Juno barked a short laugh. "You already lost order, Commander." Before Thylan could reply, the sound of gunfire drowned him out. The corridor ahead erupted in a wave of blinding light. Velarii soldiers, sleek, silver, perfect, formed a defensive line, their plasma glaives carving arcs of energy through the smoke. They moved as one, flawless and fast, blades humming with lethal rhythm. Then the next blast hit. A torpedo slammed into the outer hull, and the world tore open. Atmosphere howled into space, dragging bodies, debris, and fire with it. Gravity flickered. The perfect formation shattered. Juno grabbed a handrail as the deck tilted, her mag boots barely clinging. Her suit's oxygen warning screamed in her ear. Through the chaos, she saw the Velarii warriors flailing. Their armor's prediction systems froze. The AI couldn't process 1,000 simultaneous threats. They spun helplessly, trapped in their own perfection. Mac's voice crackled over comms. Guess their fancy armor didn't see that coming. Focus, Juno shouted, but her grin betrayed her. Below them, a section of the corridor twisted inward, flames spiraling in 0G. Syndicate raiders in black armor poured through the breach. No order, no pattern, just raw aggression. Tate, already kneeling by a power conduit, slapped a gravity mine onto the wall. Cover your ears. The blast didn't explode, it ripped. The magnetic shockwave yanked the first wave of raiders into the ceiling like rag dolls. Their weapons spun away into the dark. Nice toss, Max said, bracing his rifle. Wasn't a toss, Tate replied. It was a statement. They advanced together, boots thudding, weapons roaring. Every shot echoed through the fractured corridor. Juno switched to short bursts, 3 rounds per target, deliberate and brutal. Her rifle kicked like thunder, tungsten slugs turning enemy armor into scrap. Iris ducked under a broken pipe, dragging a wounded Velarii soldier to cover. The alien's armor flickered, glitching with static as it tried to reboot. Stay still, she said, pressing a sealant patch to the breach in his chest plate. The soldier's glassy eyes met hers. You improvise, he whispered weakly. That is illogical. Yeah, Iris said, firing over his shoulder. But it works. Mac's laughter echoed over the channel. Tell your commander that when he wakes up from his logic crash. Through the smoke, Juno saw movement. More silver suits, but they weren't Velarii anymore. The Oblivion Collective had scavenged Concordance tech. Their armor was patched, twisted, ugly, alien elegance welded with pirate brutality. She felt the air tighten. We've got hybrids, she warned. The first hybrid soldier lunged, moving like lightning, but its motion stuttered, hesitated mid-step. It was fast, but confused. The perfect algorithms inside its brain were fighting against the crude pirate modifications. Juno took advantage of the hesitation. She spun her rifle in one hand, drew a magnetic knife, and drove it straight into the hybrid's chest seam. The armor sparked, then went dark. She kicked it aside. Perfection really hates surprises. A sudden tremor rocked the corridor. The wall screamed. Somewhere deeper inside the station, the central reactor groaned like a dying animal. Mac's voice rose over the alarms. Cap, we're losing structural integrity on Deck 9. If this goes, we're all vacuumed. Juno's HUD flickered, displaying collapsing energy fields spreading toward their sector. She clenched her jaw. Then we move. Nearest reinforced section. Maintenance spine, Iris said quickly. It's below us, but we'll need to cut through. Tate grinned, slapping his gauntlet. Good thing I brought toys. He fired a shaped charge into the floor. The blast peeled the deck like a tin lid. Smoke billowed upward, glowing orange. After you, Juno said, jumping first into the darkness below. Her mag boots caught the next level with a clang. The others followed, one by one, dropping through the burning debris like descending angels made of steel and fire. Above them, the perfect soldiers died in silence, their flawless suits folding under the chaos they couldn't predict. Below, humanity crawled deeper into the broken guts of the station, dirty, desperate, and alive. The maintenance spine of Helios Station was never meant for people, just pipes, wires, and the occasional unlucky repair drone. Now it was the only safe place left. Captain Juno Hale crouched in the narrow crawl space, the glow from her cracked visor painting her face in ghost light. Her suit's oxygen meter blinked yellow, but she ignored it. Across from her, Mac Rivera was lying on his back, rewiring a power relay with a coffee-stained screwdriver that had probably saved more lives than any plasma rifle ever made. "You ever think," he muttered, sparks dancing across his visor, "that maybe survival shouldn't sound like an electrical fire?" Juno snorted. "If it's sparking, it means it's alive. Keep it sparking." The station groaned above them, a deep metal sigh that made dust drift from the pipes. Through a torn section of plating, she could see the stars, and the enemy fleet crawling closer like hungry insects. The Oblivion Collective wasn't just attacking. They were harvesting. Every explosion tore free fragments of Velarii tech, stolen designs, broken data cores, fragments of perfection to melt down and resell. The thought made her sick. Tate slid into view from another tunnel, visor cracked, armor scorched. Upper decks are gone. The Velarii pulled back to the command ring. Pulled back. Juno frowned. "You mean ran?" Tate hesitated. "Their suits overloaded. Systems couldn't handle the chaos. They're locking down everything now, trying to restore order." Juno shook her head slowly. "Order's dead. It died the second reality didn't match their plan." Mac tightened the relay and sat up, the glow from the wire lighting the scars on his helmet. "So what's our plan? We don't have a command grid, no comms, and the coffee machine's gone. That's basically mutiny fuel." Iris, crouched nearby, pointed at a flickering holomap she had patched together from station scraps. "There's one chance. The reactor's secondary cooling conduit runs straight toward the central hub, right under the Oblivion landing zones." Juno leaned closer. "You're saying crawl under them?" "Not crawl," Iris said. "Ride the coolant lift. It'll carry us straight to the reactor's surface, if it doesn't boil us first." Mac grinned under his mask. "So, suicide by scalding steam or by pirates?" "I like options." "Not suicide," Juno said firmly. "Distraction. The Velarii are waiting for logic to tell them what to do. We'll show them what a logic looks like." Tate laughed, the sound sharp and hollow in the narrow tunnel. "You want to distract a fleet with 4 busted rigs?" Juno met his gaze. "No. I want to make enough noise that they think we're a fleet." For a heartbeat, nobody spoke. Then Iris smiled, slow and dangerous. "I can reroute the coolant pumps. Make them pulse like engine signatures." Max slapped his gauntlet against the wall. "Add in a few det charges from my tool bag, and we've got ourselves the loudest fake armada this side of Andromeda." Juno nodded. "Then we hit their comm relays while they're panicking. Knock out their coordination. By the concordance time to regroup." Tate looked doubtful. "That's crazy." Juno grinned. "Exactly. That's why it'll work." The group started prepping. Iris stripped wires from dead consoles. Mac armed small magnetic mines and painted grinning faces on them. Tate loaded heavy rounds into his rifle with deliberate care. The cramped corridor echoed with clanks, curses, and the low hum of determination. Minutes later, the coolant shaft hissed open, a vertical tunnel filled with rising white vapor, glowing faintly blue. The heat shimmered like a living thing. Mac peered down. "That looks like a terrible idea." "Then it's perfect," Juno said, attaching her harness. "We move on my mark. Stay close, stay loud." She jumped. The blast of steam hit her suit instantly, scalding the outer plates. The world turned into rushing fog and the sound of roaring engines. She felt gravity vanish, replaced by speed and heat. Her boots clanged off metal walls as she guided her descent. One by one, her team followed, dark silhouettes diving through clouds of boiling mist. At the bottom of the shaft, the conduit opened into a massive chamber, half collapsed, half on fire. Juno landed hard, rolling to her feet. The others dropped beside her, coughing through static. "Alive," she called. "Define alive," Mac wheezed. "Because I smell like soup." Juno smiled grimly and checked her rifle. "Good. Then we're ready to ruin someone's day." Outside, the enemy fleet's shadows moved across the stars. Inside, the humans of Helios Station began their impossible counterattack, armed with duct tape, bad coffee, and pure defiance. Helios Station was dying beautifully. From orbit, it looked like a flower of fire, blooming, breaking, and bleeding light into the dark. To the Velarii, it was disaster. To Captain Juno Hale, it was opportunity. Inside the coolant tunnels, her team crawled out of the steam vents, soaked and steaming, surrounded by metal that groaned like an old beast in pain. Above them, the reactor pulses thumped in a steady rhythm, a deep mechanical heartbeat echoing through the walls. "Perfect," Juno whispered. It'll hide our signals. Mac Rivera, dripping with coolant, shook his head. Cap, you're calling perfect the sound of an engine that could explode at any moment. That's the human definition, Juno said with a grin. They began planting the decoy charges along the reactor ring, small magnetic mines, and signal repeaters shaped like glowing eggs. Iris adjusted the frequency on her wrist display, her brow furrowed. If I sync the pulse to the coolant cycle, every det charge will look like a ship's engine flare, she explained. But the signal will only last 3 minutes. That's 2 more than we need, Juno replied. Assuming we live for 3, Mac muttered, slapping a final mine onto the wall. The hum of the station deepened. Through the cracked viewport above them, they saw movement. The Oblivion fleet drifting closer, their scavenged ships locking weapons on the crippled station. Red targeting beams sliced through the smoke. Juno activated her helmet comms. Ready on my mark, now. The first explosion lit the void. Then another. Then 10 more, rippling outward like drumbeats. The fake signals flared, glowing spheres of heat and radiation across the sector. To enemy scanners, it looked like a fleet emerging from the clouds of debris. 50 ships. All human. Holy hell, Mac breathed, watching the radar. It worked. They think we've got reinforcements. Tate laughed, deep and booming. They're panicking. Look at those interceptors scatter. In the command ring, the Velarii Council scrambled across their pristine decks. Commander Thylan watched the readings, his elegant interface flickering red. Impossible. Their species cannot deploy this many craft, he said quietly. A younger officer turned to him, alarmed. Then how? Thylan didn't answer. His perfect logic had no words for deception born of desperation. Back in the reactor bay, the humans worked fast. Juno's armor was cracked at the shoulder. Sparks leapt across her gauntlet as she rearmed her rifle. She looked up through the shattered viewport. Now, she said, while they're staring at ghosts, we hit something real. Mac's grin widened. Finally, my favorite part, the part where everything explodes. He hauled a cable the size of his arm and jammed it into a broken data port. I can override the secondary power grid. We can cook their sensors, blind their targeting for a full minute. Do it, Juno said. Doing it, Mac replied. And then, with a spark that lit the entire bay, done it. A blinding surge tore through the conduits. Lights flickered, then died. Every monitor across the station went black. The Velarii system screamed with error codes they had no vocabulary for. Commander Thylan's eyes widened. They've sabotaged the main array. Our targeting is offline, said one of his subordinates. Thylan stared at the readings. For the first time in his long, disciplined life, he felt something alien. Aw, this isn't chaos, he whispered. It's strategy disguised as madness. Back in the tunnels, Juno watched as the Oblivion fleet began firing wildly into the dark, their weapons locking onto phantom signals. Some ships collided, others destroyed their own drones. The void became a storm of fire. Would you look at that? Iris murmured. They're fighting shadows. Mac wiped coolant off his visor. Told you. Chaos has better aim. Then the deck shuddered. A concussive blast rolled through the corridor, knocking them off balance. The entire left section of the station tore away, thousands of tons of metal spinning into space. Juno grabbed a railing and held on tight. That's our cue to move. Move where? Max shouted over the roaring wind. Juno pointed up. To the source. The Oblivion command ship. Ended at the root. The others stared, stunned. You're not serious, Iris said. I'm always serious, Juno replied, checking her last 2 rounds. We can't outlast them. So we end it. Max sighed, reloading his rifle. You know, you're a terrible influence, Captain. Good, Juno said, jumping into the access shaft. Then I'm doing my job. Behind her, the others followed, tired, wounded, and laughing like lunatics. The fake fleet burned bright above them, fading fast. But the real war had just begun. And this time, the humans weren't improvising to survive. They were improvising to win. The Oblivion flagship, Dreadspire, loomed above the burning wreckage of Helios Station like a black cathedral. Its hull was scarred, stitched from stolen metal, alive with crawling blue energy veins. Every few seconds, lightning rippled across its armor, silent, violent, beautiful. Most beings would have looked at it and seen doom. Juno Hale saw an entrance. Her team's battered shuttle, Mule 2, drifted in the debris field like a piece of space junk. Inside, the air stank of coolant and sweat. Warning lights blinked red across the console, and one of the seats was literally held in place by duct tape and prayer. "Cap," Max said, watching the radar. "We're flying a coffin. If we get any closer, their sensors will." "They won't," Juno interrupted. "They'll be too busy scanning ghosts." He sighed. "You really hate quiet plans, don't you?" Juno smiled under her cracked visor. "Quiet plans die quietly." Outside, the Dreadspire's venting ducts glowed faintly, massive heat exchangers pulsing with exhaust from its reactor core. Iris pointed toward them from the co-pilot's seat. "There," she said. "That's our door. Radiation's high enough to scramble targeting scanners." Tate grunted. "So we cook ourselves while sneaking in. I love this job." Mac cracked his knuckles. "We've done worse. Remember Titan's methane rig?" "That was your fault," Iris shot back. "It worked," Mac said defensively. Juno cut in, her voice calm but sharp. "Focus. Once we hit that vent, we've got 90 seconds before the next purge. After that, we're dust." No one argued. They'd already agreed, not with words, but with the silence that soldiers carry when there's nothing left to lose. "Engaging thrusters," Mac muttered, pushing the shuttle forward. The engines growled weakly. The Mule 2 shuddered, spinning through debris before catching the vector. The glowing vent ahead expanded, a storm of blue fire and metal. 30 seconds, Iris said, voice steady despite the shaking. The ship's hull creaked. Warning alarms screamed. 15. "Now or never," Juno said, slamming the release. The shuttle jolted as its docking clamps fired, magnetizing to the edge of the vent. Heat rippled across the hull, warping the paint. The humans dropped through the emergency hatch into the tunnel below, a boiling throat of light and noise. The air was so hot it shimmered. The walls were lined with pipes that hissed like serpents. Every step was a fight against exhaustion, gravity, and common sense. "This place," Mac panted, "is actively trying to kill us." "Good," Juno said. "Means we're close." They emerged into a maintenance bay deep within the flagship's spine. Above them, through layers of mesh flooring, they could hear the thrum of the main reactor, steady, arrogant, alive. Tate knelt, scanning the area. "Motion sensors. Dozens of them." Iris grinned. "Let's make them regret that." She pulled out a small, dented device, the skeleton key MK.2, Mac's latest creation. A jumble of wires, stolen chips, and bad decisions. Mac looked offended. "You upgraded it without me?" "I made it uglier," she said proudly. She plugged the key into a panel. Sparks burst out immediately. The lights flickered, then every door in the corridor opened at once. From beyond the shadows, Oblivion soldiers poured in, shouting through metallic masks. Their armor glowed red with stolen Velarii tech. "Contacts!" Tate roared, opening fire. The bay erupted in chaos. Bullets, plasma, smoke. Juno dove behind a fallen beam, firing short bursts. Her rounds punched through the pirate's armor like paper. Mac hurled an EMP grenade, shorting out 2 suits instantly. "I call that customer service." But there were too many. Dozens of hostiles, all converging. "Cap," Iris shouted. "We can't hold them." Juno's gaze flicked upward, to the reactor conduits humming above them. She grabbed a thermal charge from her belt and pointed. "We're not holding. We're dropping the ceiling." Mac blinked. "That's suicide." "Only if it lands on us," Juno said, hurling the charge. The explosion ripped through the bay. Metal screamed. Heat rushed downward. The deck collapsed, taking half the raiders with it. When the smoke cleared, the humans stood on the edge of a glowing chasm, alive, barely. Tate coughed. "Well, that was stupid." Juno smiled behind her cracked visor. "Stupid works." Through the hole below, they could see it now, the Dreadspire's heart, pulsing with cold light. The reactor core. Iris stared down. "You're not seriously thinking." "I am," Juno said. "We end this ship, we end the war." Max sighed and reloaded his rifle. "Then let's give the universe one hell of a fireworks show." They began their descent, battered, bleeding, laughing. Above them, perfection burned. Below, chaos prepared to make history. The reactor chamber of the Dreadspire looked like the heart of a dying god. It pulsed with cold, blinding light. A sphere of blue plasma held inside magnetic rings that hissed with power. Every few seconds, The field cracked like thunder, releasing arcs of lightning that licked the walls. Captain Juno Hale stood at the edge of that impossible machine, visor cracked, armor half melted, rifle empty. Behind her, Mac Rivera was kneeling beside a shattered console, fingers flying across burnt circuits. Iris was patching Tate's bleeding shoulder with a strip torn from her own suit. They were exhausted, outnumbered, but alive. Cap, Max said through the smoke. We can't blow this thing the normal way. It's built to eat explosions. Then we don't give it normal, Juno said quietly. She stared at the swirling reactor, the same stolen technology the Oblivion had used to build their empire. Every inch of it screamed perfection without purpose. Her voice was steady. We overload it from the inside. Spike the containment field using the ship's own coolant network. Mac blinked. That's insane. Good, Juno said. Then it fits the pattern. He gave a shaky grin. You're lucky I love bad ideas. He opened his toolkit, what was left of it, and pulled out the half-broken skeleton key. Wires hung loose, its casing cracked from the fall. I can hijack the coolant regulators, he said. But once it starts, there's no stopping it. We'll have maybe 60 seconds before this place becomes a new star. Plenty of time, Juno said. We just have to live for one more minute. The deck trembled. From above, heavy footsteps echoed, metallic, rhythmic. Through the haze, a massive figure descended. The Oblivion warlord, his armor twice the size of a man, glowing with stolen Velarii plating. You, he growled, voice booming through the chamber. You dare touch my core? Juno raised her rifle, but the barrel clicked empty. She tossed it aside and reached for a magnetized knife. No, I dare finish what your perfection started. The warlord lunged, swinging a molten blade. Juno rolled aside, her boots scraping across the scorched floor. The weapon cut through steel where she'd been standing. Sparks exploded. Tate fired his last rounds into the warlord's chest. They ricocheted harmlessly. I'm out, he yelled. Then make noise. Juno shouted back, ducking under another swing. The warlord laughed, a deep, cruel sound. You fight with broken tools and dying breath. You cannot win. Juno gritted her teeth. You're right, but we can make it hurt. She kicked a loose conduit into the coolant pool. The liquid flared, igniting into blue fire. Steam filled the chamber, clouding everything. Max shouted over the roar. Keys in. Overload in 30 seconds. Fall back, Juno ordered. The team stumbled toward the maintenance lift, except Mac. He stayed kneeling by the panel, sparks dancing around him. Mac, Juno called. Move. He looked up, smiling through the flicker of flames. Someone's got to make sure it actually cooks. Besides, he tapped the broken key. This thing only listens to me. Juno froze. You'll die? Yeah, he said softly. But it'll be loud. She wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The warlord emerged from the steam, roaring, his armor cracked and burning. He raised his weapon again. Juno ran, not away, but toward him. Her boots slammed against the deck, thrusters screaming. She jumped, driving her knife into the joint of his chest plate. The blade sank deep. He swung wildly, but she didn't let go. Hey, metalhead, she whispered through her comms. Ever heard of human stubbornness? Mac hit the final switch. The reactor screamed. Light consumed everything. The explosion was silent in space, a blinding bloom of white and blue that tore the Dreadspire apart. Debris scattered like stardust, trailing behind Helios Station's broken orbit. From the command deck, Commander Thylan watched, eyes wide. He had expected failure. Instead, he witnessed defiance. Impossible, one of his officers whispered. They destroyed the flagship. Thylan didn't respond. He simply stared at the spreading light, then at the data feed showing human life signs, faint, flickering, but alive. He spoke softly, almost to himself. They don't follow perfection. They endure it. Hours later, rescue crews pulled Juno and her surviving team from a drifting escape pod. Their armor was shattered, their faces blackened with soot. When she stepped onto the deck, Commander Thylan approached, his silver armor still spotless. He stopped before her, then, for the first time in Velarii history, bowed. Your methods defy understanding, he said. But they saved us all. Juno looked at him, tired but proud. That's because understanding isn't survival. Surviving is. She turned toward the viewport. The wreck of the Dreadspire burned silently in the distance, its light fading into the stars. Mac's voice echoed faintly through the comms recorder she carried. One last static laugh. Told you chaos had style. Juno smiled, eyes glinting. Perfection was gone. Humanity remained. And somewhere in the endless dark, the galaxy finally understood. The strongest weapon in existence isn't flawless steel. It's the hand that refuses to let go.